What does rest mean to you? How often do you take the time to rest in the midst of competing priorities? Grab your lunch and let's talk rhythm of rest.
Oh my Lord, sing hallelujah, people. Oh my Lord, sing to the world. Follow the light, fight the good fight. God knows you're right to get on the righteous road.
Thanks for joining us. Our guest today is someone we've met in the past, an author, Bible teacher, and speaker, Dr. John Andrews. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm alright, thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you so much for stopping for lunch again.
It's a pleasure. It's a
How
pleasure.
are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You recently wrote a book about rhythm of rest. What's this all about?
Well, really, as someone who spends a lot of time with people, ministering to people, teaching, I think you notice how our world is changing. I think people are living faster, more frantic lives. Anxiety levels are up, pressures up, demands are up. Even our glorious smartphones have changed the way we live our lives. You know, we are essentially on call, on demand, accessible 24/7. And we need to ask ourselves as followers of Jesus, is that good? Is that what we want? Just because we can do those things doesn't mean we should. And I think one of the things we need to think about is a theology that helps drive our technology, and a theology that actually causes us to look at the way we live our lives and ask, is this healthy? Is this good for us? And the idea of the rhythm of rest is introduced to us right at the beginning of the Bible. And I think it's something worth taking seriously, really.
Okay, so tell me about this.
Well, if you look at the opening pages of the Bible, not only do you have the amazing story of God's creation, but at the end of that first creative week, God on day 7 introduces rest. We call it becomes eventually known as Sabbath. But the word literally is Shabbat, rest. And there's two interesting things about that 7th day. Number one is that God is the creator of the universe, so he doesn't need a rest. So why is he resting? And secondly, he's just made the first man and woman, and he's asking them to have a rest. So if you follow the chronology of the creation story, humans are made on day 6, and we rest on day 7. So two things to notice. God has a rest even though he's God and he doesn't need one. The humans have a rest even though they haven't done anything. So what do we learn from that? Well, the big thing we learn is that rest on day 7 is not just physical. It can't be just physical because God doesn't need a physical rest, and the humans that he's made don't need a physical rest at that stage. So the rest that he's looking at there is greater than physical. And I think it's part of our makeup. I think it's part of the way we're designed. I think we're designed to work and live in the rhythm of rest. And an interesting idea that because it's day 7 for God, it sort of finishes the week. But in a sort of an interesting flip, it's day 1 for Adam and Eve. If they've got made on day 6, then day 7 is sort of their first day. And so you get this interesting flip over that it's the final day of the week for God, but it's the first day of the week for Adam and Eve. And yet God begins his creative order with humans with rest. This idea that we don't just rest from work, but we work from rest. And God brings rest into the very beginning of our story. And it's not just a physical rest, although I think that's a good idea to have 1 day in 7 off at least. I think that's a good idea. But I think it's deeper than that. I think it's about our spirituality, our emotional well-being. I think it's about the way we're actually designed. We are designed to live in the rhythm of rest. And I think that's an important idea for many of your viewers who are busy lives and many demands on them. That's an important idea for us to at least think about as we go forward in our world.
Well, I quite like the fact that you mentioned that some of us have got very busy, schedules, competing priorities. But how easy is it to actually find out that time to rest?
Well, of course, it's like everything. It's not easy to find time, but when we have a clear sense of priority and purpose, it is easier to make the time. So I meet lots of people and they say, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. Here's what I've discovered. You always have time for something you believe in. So if you believe in going to the gym, you'll make time for that. If you believe in, baking cakes, you'll make time for that. If you believe in Spending time with family, you will make time for that. So there's always time for the right things. And I've met people over the years, and to be honest, when they say, I don't have time, what they mean is too many things are really competing for their time. We have to have the courage to ask the question, what are the issues that we want in our world? Is rest, is that sense of rhythm of well-being an important issue to us? If it is, then we can make the time. We can make adjustments. We can drop things out. We can bring things in order to make the time for that to happen. So it's not easy, and many of your viewers will be working very, very hard, but it is possible. It has to be possible. And in fact, if it's not possible, and I think our well-being is under threat, I think we're in danger of hurting ourselves in the short term and in the long term.
Yeah, I quite like that, because I was just going to ask, what do we miss when we don't make our time to rest?
Well, I think potentially you could miss so many things. I think that we're living at such a fast pace. Many of us aren't really enjoying the journey. I have 3 children, and when they were younger, we would maybe go to the seaside. And of course, the minute you get a child in a car, the child is asking the question, are we there yet? And I totally understand that within humans there is a desire to get somewhere, but the Bible also teaches us that we are encouraged to enjoy the journey of getting there. So I've just come back from Canada, and my passion was just to get to Canada, but actually I made a decision to enjoy the journey. I made a decision to make some connections. I had wonderful conversations on the aeroplane. I met people that if I had just been focused on getting to Canada, I wouldn't have had those conversations. But when you have your eye on where you're going, but you also are prepared to slow down a little bit and look around what's happening, you actually start to enjoy where you are, as well as hopefully, having ambition about where you're going.
And of course, the Bible says, in repentance and trust is your salvation, in quietness and rest is your strength.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And, Psalm 23, that many of your viewers will know, the Lord is my shepherd. I mean, it's one of the most loved Psalms, but it makes a beautiful statement. It says that the shepherd leads us to the green pastures. He makes us lie down beside still waters. And that word still literally means, without movement. And then it says, he restores my soul, or in Hebrew, it points to the idea of he brings my soul back. He revives my soul. He turns it back to its original place. And it's interesting that the restoring of the soul is in the context of feeding and quietness. He leads me to the green pastures. He brings me and makes me lie down at the still waters. And there's a powerful idea there. Many people are trying to find rest and rejuvenation and restoration to their souls without feeding their souls and without bringing their souls to quietness. And actually, we've got to be prepared to do those things consistently in order to bring our hearts to rest.
Amen. So you're a very busy man. I think in the past fortnight, you've traveled across 3 continents. Is that correct? 3 continents?
Yeah, well, I've been on the road sort of constantly, probably the last couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So what does rest mean to you?
Well, I think it's thinking about rest as a rhythm. So what we try to do, even when we're traveling, we try to think of 1 day in 7 where you are not doing what you normally do. So the idea of Sabbath in an Old Testament context was to stop work and focus on God. Realign your soul. And so wherever I am in the world, I try to build that in. And so my wife and I, normally, if I'm at home, our Sabbath is Tuesday. And so we would have a Monday evening and a Tuesday off where we do things other than work. We rest our soul. But also rest can be about doing activities that refill you, things that help you, rejuvenate you, bless you. So for me, walking is a wonderful Sabbath event. Going to the gym is a Sabbath event. Enjoying a good movie in the cinema can be a Sabbath event. In other words, what you're doing is you're slowing your life down. You are taking the focus off the normal everyday demands of work, and you're allowing yourself to engage with things that you enjoy and that fill your heart and fill your life. So some people who follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram will see a hashtag, and often I will have the hashtag tank filler. where I'm doing things that actually build me up on the inside. And so don't just think of rest as inactivity. Think of rest as doing things that build you up, that fill you up. And if you think of it like that, you can do that virtually everywhere and anywhere you are in the world.
So what advice have you got for us in terms of having a good work-life balance?
Do you know, that word balance is a really elusive one. And my considered opinion, and feel free to disagree, is that I think it's virtually impossible to achieve balance in work and life because it never stays the same. It's always moving. My life is always changing. And in fact, balance demands for me to look at things almost as equals or find equal weight to counterbalance. And I think it's a very difficult idea when you've got family and jobs and church and hobbies. I think it's a more healthy and more practical way to think about rhythm. And by rhythm, what we mean is issues of health and life that are consistently processing in your life. Some of those in some parts of your life will be more important. Sometimes they'll be less important. Sometimes they'll get more time. Sometimes they'll get less time. But for me, thinking rhythm rather than trying to find perfect balance to my 3 children, perfect balance against my job, I found that virtually impossible in the years that I followed Jesus. But the idea of rhythm, having consistently good, healthy processes and habits in my life and engaging with those frequently or consistently or rhythmically, I have found that that's helped me to live a healthier lifestyle, which then people might look at me and go, you've got a very balanced life. But I think my life is more rhythmic than balanced because I've got the key elements working consistently in them rather than trying to achieve perfect balance with all the elements within it. And I think that mentality, that approach might help your very busy viewers rather than trying to achieve elusive balance.
Well, Dr. John Andrews, thank you so much for chatting with us. Okay.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thanks for your fellowship today. If this has blessed you, you know what to do. Like, comment and follow. And don't forget to find that time to rest. God gives his beloved rest. See you tomorrow.
Oh my Lord, sing to the world.